Welcome to this video lecture. It's a pleasure and an honor to share with you a little bit of my know-how related to adhesively cemented posterior restorations. Thanks also to Ostercon for the support and distribution of this online course. So the topic of my lecture is an up-to-date overview on indirect posterior adhesive restorations using a multidisciplinary approach. I speak about update indications and the innovative new cavity design named morphology-driven preparation technique that I published, and all the clinical procedures. We have to start from a concept. The modern restorative dentistry is essentially adhesive. Adhesive dentistry is extremely conservative. Look at this wide cavity with the partially substained cusps, restored with a direct composite restoration with a really minimally invasive approach in a young child. Adhesive dentistry may be also minimally invasive with the indirect technique. Look at this preparation for occlusal veneers. Here is the tabletop, very thin. Adhesive dentistry may be also non-invasive. In this case of deep bite, I perform additional overlays and palatal veneers for increasing occlusal vertical dimension without any preparation of teeth, using the same impression for the replacement of upper right molars on implants with the sinus lift. Adhesive posterior restoration may be invisible, both with direct and indirect technique. We can achieve highly aesthetic results with the direct composite restorations, even if they are really demanding in anterior teeth. But certainly the best aesthetic result are obtained with the ceramic laminate veneers that are not simple prosthetic restorations, but restorations that faithfully emulate nature, becoming just like real teeth. And then the adhesive restorative is predictable in terms of durability over time. You can see follow-up at some restorations after 8, 10, 11, and also 20 years with a perfect clinical and radiographic stability over time. The adhesive restorative dentistry is also highly predictable in the results, since aesthetic rehabilitation can be carefully planned by means of digital smile design, wax up, and mock-up by silicone index transfer in order to achieve the final success. And finally, we can perform with innovative approach the full mouth adhesive rehabilitation that are the highest expression of minimally invasive restorative dentistry. According to Geneva's University classification in 1994, we can classify the adhesive techniques in direct, semi-direct, and indirect, each one with a specific characteristic and indications. Direct techniques are traditionally indicated for preventive restoration, small and medium-sized class 1 and class 2 with the cervical enamel. In this clinical situation, the first choice is direct technique, which allows for high-level, predictable, and repeatable result with a conservative approach and an excellent longevity and an excellent result. The major problems with the direct composites, especially in wide cavities, are wear resistance, polymerization shrinkage, postoperative sensibility, and above all, achieving predictable contacts and a good occlusal morphology. However, the limits of direct techniques have been updated in the last 15 years. And so direct techniques may be effective even in case of cusp coverage, obtaining a clinical outcome similar to indirect techniques. And the mere lack of cervical enamel may not represent an indication for indirect technique anymore. So, we may use direct techniques also for wide restorations with partial cusp coverage, as in this case. But in this case, the main difficulty is to manage adequately the morphology of the occlusal surface, the contact point, and the emergence profile. In some cases of wide cavity and subgingival margin, we can also go for a direct restoration with an integrated surgical and restorative one-stage approach. Here you can see, for example, an inadequate restoration with the caries, recurrence, and the fracture of the cervical enamel. This is an interesting case that I published in the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry. I removed the amalgam with rubber dam. The distal cervical margin involved the tissue attachment almost down to the alveolar ridge. Both surgery was performed, sutures were applied, and then a cellulose-based caulking material, that is Orasil caulking by Ultradent, was applied according with the technique I published in my book Solutions, published in 2021 by EDRA, about intrasurgical or immediately post-surgical field isolation with rubber dam. Here is the immediate post-surgical direct composite restoration, previous a little deep margin elevation with the composite, with a flowable composite. And you can appreciate the correct morphology of the restoration at the end of the freehand layering and after finishing and polishing procedure. Here you can appreciate the good result and the perfect morphology, all freehand. And after 50 days, you can appreciate a quick, favorable tissue healing and a good aesthetic and morphologic integration. X-rays shows a correct emergence profile and a good marginal sealing. This case clearly shows how successful the one-stage surgical restorative approach is. And this is the follow-up after 4 years with a great stability from a clinical and radiographic point of view. But this type of direct approach in wide cavity can be rather difficult. For this reason, when we cross a certain limit, it becomes clinically convenient to use indirect techniques. The improvement of adhesion allows us to redefine the indication among the different restorative procedures towards a more and more conservative direction. Also, implants, for example, are the most conservative way to restore one single tooth missed. Okay, now let's get into main topic of my lecture. Adhesive cemented restoration has been defined as a partial crown restoration made in composite or full ceramic that has to be seated passively and adhesively cemented in a cavity characterized by specific attributes. The updated indication of the adhesive cemented restoration are mainly wide class 2 cavities with cusp coverage and the restorations of large occlusal surfaces compromised by wear and biocorrosion. Some cofactors may boost the indications, such as missing enamel, missing cervical enamel, multiple restoration in several quadrants, the need to increase occlusal vertical dimension, and so on. About the materials and classification, we can use composite restorations performed with a semi-direct technique, intraoral or better extraoral on the elastic model silicone or CAD-CAM, or with an indirect techniques by layering composite or chairside CAD-CAM polymers. And you can use also ceramic restoration that may be performed with the die casting or with the traditional impression, or CAD-CAM with a stereolithographic model or model-free with a digital workflow. Regarding the longevity of the indirect posterior restoration, Morimoto's recent systematic review highlights that the cumulative survival rate of ceramic restoration was 91% at 10 years. The main cause of failure was fracture or chipping in 4% of cases. The operative sequence to perform indirect restoration is well defined and summarized in this table and well described first in my paper published in the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry in 2017 and then in my new book Solutions published by EDRA in 2021. And the operative sequence is opening the cavity, removal of the caries, evaluation of the residual thickness, and reduction of the unsupported cusps. Adhesive build-up after the reduction of the unsupported cusp, and then cavity preparation in according with the morphology-driven preparation technique that I published, and then traditional or digital impression, and then adhesive cementation, and then finishing and occlusal check. Here is the final result of the restoration after cementation. An important issue is about cavity design. The old conventional preparation were designed for non-adhesive restorations. The cavity design had to ensure retention by means of shoulders, occlusal slots that could expose sound dentin with a wide loss of structural tissue, and therefore not conservative enough and not suitable for adhesive procedures because of presence of isthmi, shoulders, angles, and so on. In the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry in 2017, I published a new cavity design named Morphology-Driven Preparation Technique that considers the real morphostructural and histoanatomical aspects in the crown, in the tooth crown. The clinical advantages of this new anatomic preparation design are to improve adhesion quality, minimize dentin exposure, maximize hard tissue preservation, optimize the aesthetic integration. As you can appreciate this innovative preparation in these images. Look at the sample of the preparation for endodontically treated upper bicuspid. The preparation principle include a butt joint 1.2 mm thick of the interproximal box, 6 to 10 degrees divergent internal walls, anatomic reduction of the occlusal surface, and preparation of the axial walls with